What's up? Welcome back to Tales to Morrow. I am Morrow, and I'm going to be a storyteller for today, covering some RPG horror stories. Let's go ahead and get to the RPG horror stories. DM crosses boundaries by forcing my character's sexuality through drunken RP. So, a while back, I joined a new D&D group, which seemed to be very well written and engaging, so I was excited for the immersive storytelling. Our dungeon master, whom I'll refer to as Jake, initially seemed like a cool and creative person. Little did I know, things were about to take an uncomfortable turn. During one particular session, our characters found themselves in a rowdy tavern. Jake had introduced a drinking mechanic, where our characters' actions would be influenced by their level of inebriation. The more we drank, the more outlandish the results. It sounded like a fun idea at first, but it soon became problematic. Drunk mechanics can be really fun, especially when it comes to being more generalized, but I mean, the fact that the OP says that becoming problematic, that's, well, we are reading an RPG horror story, so it's probably gonna get pretty bad. As the night went on, my character, a swashbuckling rogue named Flynn, had imbibed quite a bit. That's when Jake announced, with an unsettling smirk on his face, that I would need to roll a dice to determine my character's sexual orientation. According to him, everyone's gay if they're drunk enough. Everyone's gay if they're drunk enough. What is that supposed to mean? What if the player doesn't want to do it? What if the player's uncomfortable with that idea? What if the player just, hey, maybe they just want to get so smashed and drunk to the point where they just become more, I don't know, cuddly or violent or start crying. Typically, if you notice, the different types of drunks is either a happy drunk, a sad drunk, or an angry drunk. That's typically what you get. Or also the drunk that never shuts up. That's kind of me, actually. But anyway, when it comes to this sort of mechanic, why? It'd be much different if, let's say, for example, the player was very open to it and actually requested it and wanted to consent to it and was like, hey, DM, if we ever have that mechanic, have a secret mechanic just for my character because he's rolling both ways and every way. But like, if the players don't decide on it, then no, don't do that. Don't force people's sexualities. Why do the DMs always have to try to change player characters' sexualities for one way or the other? There was that one story about the DM PC that was trying to be forced into romance for the PC from the other day, and now this. What the hell? I was taken aback with this sudden twist, and the discomfort settled in quickly. I expressed my concern about this forced role, explaining to Jake that it crossed a personal boundary. I'd never intended for Flynn to be anything other than heterosexual, and I didn't appreciate my character's identity being dictated by a random roll of the dice. The DM only has the ability to enforce spell effects, stun, charm, frighten, that sort of thing. The DM does not have the power to enforce sexuality. That's crossing some major lines. What the hell? But Jake was having none of it. He dismissed my objections, claiming it would add excitement and intrigue to the game. He even encouraged me to embrace this newfound aspect of Flynn's character. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that my agency as a player was being stripped away, and my character was being molded against my will. Why do you want to encourage or change or alter your player character's sexuality in some way? And you just say, it's whatever. Listen, I got it. I know what's best for you. You don't know what's best for your character. I know what's best for your character. What is such an arrogant way to think about it? Like, what do you get off on this? The situation worsened when Jake started targeting other players as well. He would wait until one of us had consumed enough to drink in-game before subjecting them to the same role, leading to a forced narrative that made us all uncomfortable. Felt like a violation of our trust and disregard for our personal boundaries. Feeling trapped and frustrated, I made the difficult decision to leave the group. Good, I'm glad you did. It was disheartening to abandon the potential for a thrilling campaign, but I couldn't continue subjecting myself to this uncomfortable situation. RPGs should be about collaborative storytelling, not about imposing personal beliefs or desires onto unwilling participants. Good thing you left before the DM decided to bring out a rogue DMPC as your romance target or whatever. Trying to force that on you. I share this story as a cautionary tale to fellow players and dungeon masters. Consent and respect are paramount in any RPG experience. As a DM, it's important to establish clear boundaries and listen to your players' concerns. Forcing someone's sexuality, especially in a casual and non-consensual manner, is neither respectful nor acceptable. TLDR, DM forces my character's sexuality through a drunken role, claiming everyone is gay if they're drunk enough. Discomfort and disregard for personal boundaries leads me to leave the group. Consent and respect are essential in RPGs. Players should feel safe exploring their characters on their own terms. Honestly, that TLDR put it best. Players should be able to explore their characters' adventures or sexualities or whatever, not the DMs. Let's get to the next story before I get more mad. I have no mouth and I must scream. Local Game Store Edition. Hey there, I'm a longtime player that recently returned to the game after about a 10-year hiatus. After being traumatized by the experience that is online Discord Roll20 community, I decided to try my luck at some good old-fashioned in-person D&D. My latest online campaign had been going well for a few sessions after the DM took control of a dragon we were supposed to fight and started using it to awkwardly flirt with the only female player, while the rest of us spent little hours perpetually failing our saves against a fear aura with a seemingly unbeatable DC. The female player's druid was okay though, with her 28 wisdom and wearing enough artifact tier magic items to probably qualify as an actual construct. Can we get that as an RPG horror story? I would love to read that. That sounds like a beautiful disaster that I really want to read. Anyway, there was probably some red flags I should have picked up on earlier. But by this point, my standards were so low that as long as the DM could demonstrate some frontal lobe development and an absolutely basic understanding of the rules, that was good enough for me. Regardless, all of this is irrelevant to my current predicament. A bit of background on me. Most of my experiences come from playing 3.5 in college. The culture was a bit different back then, with less focus on player power fantasy and more on brutal campaigns with tactically difficult encounters. At least that's how we played. This will be somewhat relevant later. Anyway, on with the story. Our tale begins at the local game store with an experienced older DM. He's been playing D&D for much longer than me, and I get excited as we start talking about 3.5. The current campaign is 5e, which I don't like as much, but everybody plays it and it's fine. We start in a default Forgotten Realm setting at level 3. The other players are No Rogue, Orc Fighter, Halfling Cleric, Human Bard, and me, Human Sorcerer. We roll for stats, which is a red flag. And of course almost everyone cheats, but whatever, that's just a given. I put a 16 in charisma and garbage for almost everything else, while everyone except the bard has like at least 2 17 pluses and everything else above the 13. Strangely, the DM doesn't seem to ever notice or care. Regardless, the first session actually goes well. We introduce ourselves and meet up to guard an outpost on the edge of town from the bandit raid, and fight some easy combats. Anyway, the session 2 comes along and the problem starts. We're wandering through the woods and suddenly get an ambush and put into an impossible combat. They have at least 5 mounted fighters, a cleric, a handful of archers, and an arcane caster that nukes half the group with a fireball on round 2, downing 2 players. They also have a ton of cover because we accidentally stumble upon their secret camp or something, while we have none. It's almost like when you're playing an RPG and you find like level 1 or 2 wolves and then accidentally cross over to a high endgame area and suddenly you have all this ridiculous challenge. I don't know why the DM is doing it. Maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know. I'm ready for the TPK when the bandits surround us and demand our surrender, which of course we do. They say they'll let us live if we give them all our gold, so that happens. We tend to our wounds and stumble back to the outpost, report our failure, and everyone generally feels like shit. But the outpost commander pays us each about half of what we lost for finding the location of their camp, which feels lame, but okay. And then the game continues, and pretty much every combat from then on starts to turn into a repeat of this scenario. Okay, I'm really not liking where the DM is going. Why made the combat so challenging? What, the first counter was a little bit too easy, so he decided, you know what, let's not crank it up 1 notch, let's go for a full 100 notches. Players are gonna love that. I quickly noticed that monsters have widely inconsistent stat blocks. On one encounter we'll fight 5 goblins that go down without a fight, and the next that have multiple attacks, magic weapons and armor, absurd saves, advantage on pretty much everything, 30 plus hit points each, etc. We actually had a combat where I upcasted my sleep to 2nd level and affected literally 0 goblins. The DM said they'll work for a powerful wizard who gave them focuses to make them immune. I then wasted a turn casting web into an advantageous spot, and all 8 goblins passed their save without fail, except for one, over 3 rounds, which is pretty much statistically impossible even for creatures with moderately high reflex saves. To make things worse, the encounters seem to be specifically tailored to counter our party. Whenever we found a strategy that worked, the monsters magically either spontaneously happened to have a solution, or the next fight was even worse. Okay, yeah, that would grind my gears as well. I have not personally had to deal with that, but I know several people that play D&D with me that have encountered particular DMs that kind of overtune fights where, let's say for example, you taken on a dragon as a party, right? And you decide to prepare ahead of time the ability to cancel out fear. It's like a druid thing, I forgot what it's called, but basically you become immune to fear. And then the DM says, oh, this dragon has the ability to cause fear regularly? We gotta change it to paralyze. So basically, all the investment you put into avoiding having the immunity to fear and give an advantage in a fight, you immediately lose, and you have to deal with paralyze or stun or whatever else the DM decides. One time, the entire party was routed fighting a bunch of dumb melee skeletons, and so I made myself levitate 15 feet into the air and blasted them with cantrips until they were all dead. The next fight, the skeletons were flying. Another time, the fighter ate an attack of opportunity from a large owlbear so the bard could get out of melee, only to find out that the owlbear had multiple reactions for some reason. Our summons would also be turned against us by powerful wizards in the area, and on more than one occasion, when we were winning, a group of enemies were straight up teleported into the middle of our group from outside of combat and got a full round of attack against us. I think some of us were suspicious that the DM was just straight up cheating in rolls as well, but a few players were unfamiliar with the rules, so they kinda just trusted everything. Started writing down how much HP each monster required to take down, the number of passes and failed saves, etc., and yeah, it became obvious pretty quickly. I think that the DM was just fudging everything on his end. If you're gonna have combat, difficult combat, at least keep it fair. I try to go with least amount of fudging as possible, unless it's something that's like super important or something that adds to the combat. This DM is honestly so anti-player, it is frustrating and angry, because like, why? Who hurt you? Who hurt you? And why are you doing this? It's like a revenge ploy, except the players didn't even do anything wrong. They're just the target of his abusement more like it. And look, I'm no stranger to impossibly difficult combats or campaigns, but at least in those cases the DM was playing by the rules, so even losing could still be fun. But when my actions have no actual impact on the outcome of the battle, because nothing is real, I might as well do nothing at all. But the DM never actually killed anyone, although sometimes I kinda wished he would kill me. The typical combat would usually go something like this. Some weak monster shows up, we start fighting, are suddenly ambushed by much stronger enemies out of nowhere, which then either lets us escape or just leave once we're dying and trying to escape. And they're constantly making us feel like shit extended to the story as well. There was no overreaching plot, we weren't the heroes, or even important at all, but just a ragtag band of irrelevant drifters barely scraping together enough gold to not starve. If your impact doesn't matter in the game, then why bother in the first place, right? God, this DM is insufferable. I feel terrible for the players. Not only were we complete losers that couldn't succeed at a quest by getting our asses handed to us and returning with information, but every decision we made came back to bite us in the ass. One time we helped a poor village woman find her son who was lost in the woods, only to be hunted down in a completely different province by a band of extremely powerful cultists who had murdered the kid as a sacrifice. I am so mad right now. What is this? Also, the gnoll had been eating the corpses of our enemies and generally acted like a murder hobo. And originally our party had a problem with it, but the player got very defensive out of character whenever our characters in character tried to stop him and claimed we were ruining his RP. So I think we all kind of give up and just ignored him. Yep, that's it. The players just feel defeated. What's the point of trying to control the gnoll murder hobo from just eating everything if none of it really matters? Why even try? What is the point? Why are we here? Just to suffer. So yeah, it turns out he ate the son of some influential noble, We were hunted down by extremely powerful bounty hunters who were level 4, and they had a wizard who could cast 6th level spells. We frantically escaped and managed to find a body part of said noble. The DM graciously let us resurrect the kid at a church. We had to fork over literally all of our money and almost every magic item we had earned by that point. So on top of everything, the party was starting to fall apart. They all wanted to kill and eat just about everyone, which the orc thought was funny, but it also made doing any sort of quest just about impossible. By level 5, we started to break out into PvP about once a session, usually everyone versus the gnoll and orc. In response, the gnoll and orc, who were newer players, started asking the DM for extremely powerful abilities that were either incredibly vague or straight up didn't make sense within the context of the rules, or insane equipment that they should have because of their race/background/heritage or whatever just to get an edge, which to his credit the DM denied. Although the orc randomly found a +1 flame tongue greatsword in a cave somewhere. Oh my god, the players are even devolving into PvP just because they're getting so fed up with everything, they have no purpose, and now they're just taking out their anger on themselves. They're taking out the anger on themselves because the DM has no control of anything going on and makes the players feel like shit. This is terrible. This is actually awful. Unless there was a reason why they wanted to engage in PvP, I'm thinking the players are just losing their goddamn minds. I don't know why I was still in the game. The DM is nice, friendly, has a very passive demeanor. He also clearly had a very deep understanding of the game across multiple editions, so I'm honestly mystified as to what he's getting out of this. He doesn't appear to take any kind of pleasure in just torturing us. He keeps telling us that the early game is hard because we're just starting out and making a name for ourselves, but it never gets any easier. I still have fun hanging out with some of the players and interacting with NPCs, but anytime it comes to combat, I keep hoping in vain that this time will be different, only to be slapped in the face again. Anyway, I feel like now I know how the humans in that Ellison novel who were eternally tormented by AM must have felt. Please help me. I should add that the DM likes to brag about how hard his campaigns are, which yeah, your campaign's gonna be pretty hard if you just cheat. Please help me. OP. This is abuse. This is a bad relationship that's... you're getting nothing out of it. What positive do you get? Yeah, I get the DM is nice, and maybe the other players are okay too, but are you getting nothing out of this? No D&D would be better than this. Anything would be better than this. Heck, actual real-life torture would probably be more stimulating than this. I really hope you get yourself out of the game. It's not worth it, bro. It's not worth it. And that'll be our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you had a blast. If you want to leave any feedback for any of the stories or myself, comments down in the description below. If you want to see more of this, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to leave any sort of feedback but you don't want to say anything, leave a like if you want to. It's up to you. I don't know if it affects YouTube in any way or not. I'll see you guys next time on more Tales tomorrow. See you later.